Kamal, meetings don't get meatier than this. Literally Starmer and Trump putting the meat back into meeting.
They certainly are. He's landed, he's in America. He's the sort of understudy to the world's new godfather,
Yes.
Keir Starmer, on probably the most important day of his political career with Donald Trump.
Memories of being on a plane with
Yes.
the PM. I mean, I've been on a plane with the royals, and then we wait patiently. Are they going to come down? Are we going to have a huddle? In royal land, they're much more kind of ad hoc. To be fair, if you're on a plane with a prime minister, they have to come and speak to the press, don't they?
Yeah, there are some traditions of doing prime minister's visits, particularly to the States, where all the journalists will be brought together at some part or in the middle of the plane. The prime minister will come down from, he's usually in first class at the front. There'll be a huddle. So our political editor, Ben Riley-Smith, was on the plane. Journalists are obviously trying to get a line out of the prime minister. And in this instance, Keir Starmer is desperately trying not to do that because he doesn't want to land into a controversy. So all he did say is really repeating the things he has said many times before, that he warned Trump that Vladimir Putin would invade Ukraine again unless the US provided this backstop.
Although one slight issue. As Starmer is still in the air, Trump tells reporters, I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that. So, I mean, quite diplomatic, not completely blowing Starmer out of the water, but certainly sort of positioning himself like he's not going to be pushed around by anyone. So Starmer firmly in his big boy pants, about to meet Donald Trump at the Oval Office as we are recording this podcast. And my God, this is a power play. There's a power play going on. We've got Andrew Tate and his brother, Tristan, released from Romania on a private jet back to the US, which could be this kind of preemptive two-fingered salute to the British. I don't know how to interpret it, but it's strange timing, isn't it?
It's a really odd moment to say that someone like him, who's facing these charges in Romania and allegations in the UK and allegations in America around rape and abuse, which he denies, he's a significant pro-Trump supporter. Suddenly, on the day the Prime Minister arrives, he's not extradited to the UK, which is what the UK authorities are asking for. He's on a private jet back to the United States. So are they connected? We don't actually know whether they are, but it does seem very, very convenient timing for President Trump to show whatever he actually wants to do, he can just do it.
I just want to share with you, I did look up the historic relationship between Tate and Trump. Andrew Tate is quite good friends with Donald Trump Jr. Tate once said of Trump, I like Trump. He's grabbing bitches by the pussy. I like that guy. I was like, F it. He talks like a man. Oh my God. I literally don't think I could dislike Tate more than I do.
This is this thing of playing with people that might love a lot of what Trump has done. He's come in with energy, he's come in with solutions, but also the friends he keeps and the people who are around him are objectionable. If you look at the stories today on the Telegraph website about Tate's journey to America, the comments are remarkable from our readers, many of whom dislike Tate just like you do. And this is this new world order that we're talking about. It's confusing. It's not really simple to follow because, as I said at the beginning, Trump's power is the fact that he darts around and you're never sure where he's going to land.
This is what's confusing me. Starmer back in the day, old Starmer, pre-prime ministerial Starmer, I think would be absolutely aligned with Sadiq Khan on Trump. Ridicule the man, put a blimp in the air as he's visiting the UK. I would imagine that deep down Starmer really despises Trump and almost everything that Trump stands for. And now here he is. This is how governance weighs so heavily on politicians. You know, now here he is in the Oval Office, you know, hand-holding, handshaking, trying to do this thing of representing, admittedly, Britain's interests on the world stage. That these people aren't ever going to be natural bedfellows. The human rights lawyer, the man that wants to scrap DEI. I mean, you can just imagine Starmer's inner monologue as he was signing those executive orders. It like goes against everything that Starmer stands for.
I will slightly challenge that. I've written a couple of times now about who Keir Starmer is. I think Keir Starmer is about power. He is actually delighted. Where has he come from? He's a Leeds University student, human rights lawyer. He clambered up to the top of the Crown Prosecution Service as Director of Public Prosecutions. He's made it to be leader of the opposition. He's now Prime Minister. I think he is loving it. Let's listen to a little bit. There was a reception last night at the UK's embassy in Washington. Always a very grand affair. I remember going on these trips with Tony Blair when I was political editor at The Observer. Very, very grand. You have business CEOs, you have leading politicians, you have all the press are there, glittering, beautiful house, big house that the UK ambassador has in the States. And just listen to Keir Starmer when he takes the mic at that reception.
I've only just arrived, but already I can feel there's a real buzz around Washington right now. You can sense that there's a new leader in town, that he's a true one-off, a pioneer in business and in politics. Many people love him. Others love to hate him. But to us, he's just Peter.
That was actually the lesser spotted Keir Starmer joke. I know how much you love Keir Starmer,
we'll
Mr.
see
Chuckleboots.
Him this weekend at the Astoria. Absolutely hilarious.
There was Keir Starmer talking about the new UK ambassador to America, Peter Mandelson, of course, a leading figure in the New Labour revolution, government minister, sometimes controversial, but a brilliant political operator.
Master of the dark arts.
So there is Keir Starmer now at the UK embassy in Washington. He is on the world stage. He's been feted by world leaders. And that's what he wanted in his life. And I think that his principles are actually quite loosely held. He was the human rights lawyer. He then became the person who was the establishment. He then became the Corbynista-style leader of Labour. Then he dropped all the Jeremy Corbyn stuff. He then became a sort of slightly soft left. And now he's become somebody who wants to lead this, or be a player at least, in the New World Order, the first person to say he was willing to consider troops on the ground in Ukraine. He made this big announcement on defence spending. I wrote in November, the week after Trump won the presidential election, this could be the making of Starmer, in a sense, in this sense, that the public don't like soft left socialist policies, period. They want someone who's actually, yes, he might have some social justice edges to him, whatever it might be, but they want someone who is pretty pro-market, get out of people's lives. And Trump has actually given Starmer the chance to bin a lot of the things that, you're right, he would have felt comfortable with. It's like David Lammy calling the foreign secretary, who's also there in America for this visit, calling Trump a fascist. But they're all there now. They all love it. I think we can sometimes forget.
Yes.
Power is the aphrodisiac.
Yes, that's right. I mean, let's never overlook the craven self-interest of the average politician. He may well be motivated by sort of self-importance, a degree of narcissism. He is, I agree, a kind of opportunistic political shapeshifter. There's also a degree of imperiousness to him. I mean, I found the analysis of PMQs quite interesting. On one hand, oh my God, it's another car crash for Kemi Badenoch. And then curiously, as we have this Starmer Trump-off, the word misogynist has made it into descriptions of Keir Starmer's behaviour towards the opposition leader on Wednesday. I just saw a little bit of this on social media earlier. Should we just have a listen to how he treated her during that session?
Over the weekend, I suggested to the Prime Minister that he cut the aid budget, and I'm pleased that he accepted my advice. Mr. Speaker, it's the fastest response. It's the fastest response I've ever had from the Prime Minister. However, he announced £13.4 billion in additional defence spending yesterday. This morning, his Defence Secretary said the uplift is only £6 billion, which is the correct figure.
Prime Minister.
I'm going to have to let the Leader of the Opposition down gently. She didn't feature in my thinking at all. I was so busy over the weekend I didn't even see her proposal. I think she's appointed herself, I think, saviour of the Western civilization. It's a desperate search for relevance.
I think, Camilla, we said, didn't we, at the beginning of Kemi Badenoch's time as leader of the opposition, Starmer had to be very careful that he didn't come across as pompous and, as you say, patronising. And I think the confidence has bled into the way he started to perform. There's a very tiny increase in some of Labour's poll ratings after these historic lows that we've seen. So Starmer is starting to think, maybe I'm getting some momentum. If that comes with this new tone, the public will soon switch back again.
I mean, I don't think the public like him very much anyway. It's quite convenient timing, isn't it, this whole kind of foreign affairs brief blowing up in everyone's faces, because it masks a lot of domestic problems. We've got the immigration stats in, small boat crossings continue, the amount of people who have been turned back gets lower and lower. We've got figures coming in about the increased use of migrant hotels and how much that's costing the taxpayer. And actually nobody's going to be talking about that because they're all talking about this Oval Office love-in. Trump held this cabinet meeting yesterday, which was live streamed, and Elon Musk was there. We'll get onto him and what he thinks of Starmer in just a moment. But let's just listen to Trump talking about the prospect of slapping tariffs on the EU.
We have made a decision. We'll be announcing it very soon, and it'll be 25%. Generally speaking, and that'll be on cars and all other things. And European Union is a different case than Canada, different kind of case. They've really taken advantage of us in a different way. The European Union's it was formed in order to screw the United States. I mean, look, let's be honest. The European Union was formed in order to screw the United States. That's the purpose of it. And they've done a good job of it, but now I'm president.
This is difficult for Starmer, isn't it? Because Starmer will instinctively want to protect his beloved Brussels from punitive tariffs, but at the same time, with his British hat on, will be having to feel quite grateful Brexit has happened because we are separated from the EU in I feel like the EU has been massively put on the naughty step by Trump. And Britain, I mean, he's going to go there with an increase in defence spending in his back pocket. He's going to be able to say to Trump, I have listened. And he's not quite now as tainted as the UK was by our European associations.
Yeah, again, Camilla, I would remind what I said earlier. I don't think Keir Starmer is going there thinking, I must protect my beloved Brussels.
No.
He's thinking, great, we're not in the European Union anymore, so I can do some more deals. Don't forget,
this guy's so fickle.
With the Artificial Intelligence Summit that was in France a few weeks ago that JD Vance came to, the EU signed a compact on AI about controlling it and regulation. America didn't sign. The other country that didn't sign was the UK. There is, though, a matter of substance here. So just as you say, we don't want to be attached, the UK doesn't want to be attached to the EU in Trump's mind, but the UK doesn't like tariffs. Let's just listen to Peter Mandelson, we've already mentioned him, at the ambassador's reception on this tariffs issue, because this is a real matter of substance where Keir Starmer, I think it's one of the few things where Keir Starmer really wants to try and persuade Trump that tariffs aren't good for anybody's economy.
The US and the United Kingdom, I mean, we basically share everything together. You know, we share people, we share cultures, we share a lot of intelligence, we share technologies, and when need be, we also share some of the fighting of our adversaries as well. And of course, one thing we don't need to fight over is trade, because we have this fantastically fair and balanced trade relationship in which we reciprocate so much. That's just a little thing for you to remember in the coming weeks.
Literally, I mean, I've made the joke many times again. Groucho Marxism, this is, you know, here are my principles, and if you don't like them, I have others. We've got Keir Starmer many times criticising any notion of a cut to the foreign aid budget. And now he's advocated that in favour of an increase in defence spending. He's asked repeatedly at Prime Minister's questions whether this Chagos Island giveaway, which in my mind is the most bonkers policy I think I've heard in a long, long time, the idea of paying Mauritius thousands and thousands of miles away to take islands that we own, in inverted commas, and have strategic military interests in, on the back of an international court judgment involving a member of the Chinese Communist Party. Robert Jenrick, to his credit, has done a great forensic video on the lunacy of this. So if you're going to take any money to increase defence spending, surely take it from this rumoured 9 billion, 18 billion, Farage says £52 billion cost of this completely astonishingly stupid policy. And now the little weasel, I'm sorry, David Lammy is now saying, oh, hang on a minute. He tells Robert Peston on ITV. Well, let's just listen to it. Let's listen to the clip.
We struck a deal. After striking that deal, there was a change of government in Mauritius, and the new government in Mauritius had to have time to look at the deal. And there has been a change of government here in the United States, and the United States administration have had time to look at the deal. I still believe it's the best deal.
But does President Trump have a veto?
Well, if President Trump doesn't like the deal will not go forward. And the reason for that is because we have a shared military and intelligence interests with the United States, and of course they've got to be happy with the deal, or there is no deal.
Oh, he would love Trump to jump
yes.
in and cancel this deal,
Yes,
because
just to explain,
they're looking increasingly stupid by the day.
Just to explain, there is a US base on the Chagos Islands, which is the big problem, which is why America could pull that deal at any time. We know there are tensions of substance on things like tariffs and on the Chagos Island deal that the UK government is trying to push through to much controversy. And then, of course, the third big issue is going to be Ukraine.
Yeah.
And how does Keir Starmer navigate? There are two very tricky moments during any leader's visit to see Donald Trump. And we had President Macron in America slightly earlier this week. The first one is the Oval Office presser, where Donald Trump just riffs with the media. Mm-hmm. And it's about, you saw this rather awkward dance between Macron and President Trump, where they're holding hands, they put their hands on each other's knee. But Macron can sort of play that. He knows how to ham it up a bit. The thing about Trump, everything he does is a slight performance, and he knows it. He has a knowing sort of eyebrow to the world almost. There's always a slight almost smirk on his face. He knows he's playing being President Trump. Macron was able to do that, and actually, a lot of people say this is the way you should behave with Donald Trump. Made some points where he actually contradicted the president. Let's hear Macron contradicting the president on the financial support that Ukraine has received following the invasion of Russia.
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money, to be clear.
And then the second thing, Camilla, is the press conference itself. Now, some of the more romantic of the left, this is obviously a ludicrous idea, think that Keir Starmer should have the Love Actually moment when at a press conference he challenges the American president because he doesn't share our values and we need to be strong. Keir Starmer is obviously not going to do that.
No.
But the press conference, which is rather more formal, I think is the place of maximum risk for the Prime Minister because it is where Trump can throw out the erratic.
Yes.
Something that none of Starmer's diplomats, all of the civil service have even thought about, because that is how Trump operates.
And how quick on his toes is Starmer in reality?
He lacks the Macron style.
He doesn't have that French flourish, admittedly, but also, I mean, he's a lawyer, so he should be used to debating and mooting and thinking on his feet. But don't forget, he was the kind of lawyer that spent a lot of time in the office and not much time in court. So he's not particularly performative. Having said that, you know, PMQs could have drilled into him this notion of expecting the unexpected.
Well, Camilla, you spoke about this live streamed cabinet meeting. Can you imagine if that ever happened in the UK? It would be astonishing. I think there's actually some lessons here for how you communicate politics. This idea that Trump has, that you just let politics riff almost in plain sight, seems to be a very interesting model that Starmer could maybe learn from. But one person at that live stream of a cabinet was not actually an elected official, but was one Elon Musk. And of course, Donald Trump is playing the niceties of Keir Starmer as a good friend, and, I really like the guy and I love everybody. Elon Musk has had a completely different attitude to Keir Starmer, how Elon Musk describes the Prime Minister, the UK, which is going to be difficult for Starmer to navigate.
Yeah, let's have a little recap of what Musk has actually said about Starmer. So there have been clashes over various issues, child rape gangs, freedom of speech, the Southport riots. Musk accused Starmer of two-tier policing. He has said that he should be in prison over a post on X that Starmer prioritised tackling anti-Muslim abuse over condemning the Southport murderer. We think he might have had somebody in his ear. There was suggestions that Dominic Cummings had been advising him because he used that phrase two-tier Keir. Then Cummings denied that subsequently. But anyway, he also posted a poll on his own account asking whether America should, quotes, liberate the people of Britain from their tyrannical government. He also has questioned repeatedly the government's decision not to hold a full national grooming inquiry. He called the PM a national embarrassment, deeply complicit in the mass rapes in exchange for votes, and guilty of terrible crimes against the British people. So, I mean, if Musk turns up at any stage...
Starmer must just hope, and I think, and it's probably a strong hope, is that actually a lot of what Musk said is quite performative, and actually how much influence does he have over Donald Trump? He might be close to Donald Trump, but Donald Trump... The idea that somehow Musk has got huge amounts of power is probably not quite right, because actually Trump knows he holds all the cards.
Yes.
In the end, he can jettison Musk at whatever moment he wants. He's not elected, and he might do. And a lot of people predict that there will be a falling out there. So Starmer will just need to cauterize the Musk issue and just not deal with it.
I love this advice from Lord Mark Sedwill, who was the Cabinet Secretary under Theresa May and Boris Johnson, and also our former National Security Advisor, because he was on Radio 4's Today programme, and he was asked to give some advice to the PM on how to handle Trump, and this is what he said.
I think there are three things the Prime Minister needs to try to get from this visit. One is to build that personal rapport. It's the first time they've met since the Trump inauguration. And as you've said, they've had a pretty good start. It's always important, that relationship between presidents and prime ministers, you heard on the clip, but it's really important with this president because he is so driven by personal relationships and his idiosyncratic governing style. Second, the deal on Ukraine and reminding Donald Trump that Donald Trump's own art of the deal said that no deal is better than a bad deal, and so what does a good deal look like? We might come back to that. And then third, on the bilateral side, using the 3% announcement on defence this week that the Prime Minister made to get Trump to agree to reinforce the security and defence relationship and to deepen and not damage the economic relationship through tariffs and so on. And the only way to do that with Donald Trump is to talk respectfully but directly to him. He doesn't mind other people having a different view. If he thinks that they are talking about their national interest, he will have a sensible conversation about that. What he's not interested in is sort of big concepts and discussions of principle and all the rest of it. What he wants to know is what is your hard-nosed national interest and what kind of a deal can he cut with you?
That's interesting. That's how he got on well with Boris Johnson, because he respected the fact that Boris Johnson stood up for British interests on the international stage. It's a good observation by Sedwill.
And Sedwill is saying that Starmer should have exactly the same approach as Macron. So Macron went in like that. One of the most important people on this trip with Keir Starmer is Jonathan Powell, who is Starmer's national security advisor, but actually, more importantly, was chief of staff to Tony Blair for the relationships with Clinton and then George W. Bush. Although a lot of this is about Trump, yes, understood, there is also still the apparatus of the federal government, the diplomatic connections you need to make. I mean, although Trump makes the noise and sets the direction, there are still all the officials that have to be able to get on. It's about getting alongside his allies. And at the ambassador's reception last night, the FBI chief, Kash Patel, was there, very, very close to Trump, the South Carolina Senator, Lindsey Graham. These are the vital people that people like Jonathan Powell need to be getting alongside, having a glass of champagne, saying that we align on all these different things. And that's the statecraft.
Yes.
I'm not convinced Starmer has it, but he has got some people around him who hopefully can bring that into the room.
To be fair to her, somebody who might have also lacked a bit of political charisma but handled Trump relatively well was Theresa May. Do you remember when she was at the White House, she did this thing, so you talk about the spontaneity of Trump in a press conference. She did this thing where she just thought to herself, right, if I say out loud what I want to be the outcome of this meeting, then maybe it will just stick because I've just put him in a position where I've publicly declared what I would like to come of all this. So she then confirms at that press conference that Trump is 100% behind NATO in their talks. Do you remember that? And it was like, oh, okay, well, she's nailed her colours to the mast.
And then Trump needs to almost agree. And actually, again, just to go back to Macron, Trump tells a joke during this riffing at the Oval Office earlier this week that when they met in France, they were at the Eiffel Tower, and Macron was speaking in French about the right approach to Ukraine. And Donald Trump says, yes, and I was there nodding along. But of course, I didn't have a clue what you were saying because it was in French. And then when I heard the transcript, it wasn't actually what we had agreed. But Trump, even there, was willing to sort of play along with the sort of theatre of this whole thing. And it goes back to that essential truth about Trump. You take him seriously, but you don't take him literally.
Yeah.
And you have to be, just as Sedwell says, hard-headed.